Disclaimer: this content is only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. It wasn't what it looked like, but even I wasn't sure anymore. The air was heavy with silence, the kind that speaks louder than words, and in that moment, everything changed. This isn't just another husband-wife story. It's about a bond tested in silence, in distance, and in moments no one talks about. A story wrapped in longing, memory, and the kind of tension that can only come from two people who used to love so loudly, and now barely speak. Her name is Irina. A white Russian woman, elegant in every sense, her accent delicate like snowfall, her presence the kind you don't forget. She moved to the US for love, for him, for the promise of a life that once sparkled like a champagne toast. They were the couple everyone watched, laughing at brunches, slow dancing in the kitchen, whispering secrets under shared blankets. But love, like seasons, changes. And sometimes, it cools before anyone notices the frost. He, Michael, was a quiet storm. Steady. Safe. Always the calm one. Until recently. There were late nights, tired eyes, too many "I'm fines," and not enough "what's wrong." Slowly, they drifted. Words turned to silence. Touch faded into avoidance. And that morning, when Irina knelt to tie the ribbon on a forgotten gift, she didn't expect the front door to creak open. She didn't expect him to be home. And she didn't expect to see that look in his eyes, the one that made her heart skip and ache all at once. What happens next is a dance between regret and hope, between unspoken apologies and memories that refuse to fade. It's not just a story about marriage, it's a reminder of how fragile love can be, and how brave it is to fight for it when everything feels lost. This story will make you think. How do you know when love is slipping away? Can you ever get it back once it's gone quiet? Do little moments matter more than grand gestures? Pause here and ask yourself, if you were in Michael's shoes, what would you do? If you were Irina, would you wait for him to speak, or walk away before it hurts more? Tell me in the comments below, have you ever felt that silence in love? Drop a red heart if you believe even broken connections can be mended. Or tap dove if you believe sometimes, letting go is the real love. And don't forget to vote in the poll above, should Michael speak first, or should Irina break the silence? Your votes will shape how part 2 unfolds. So stay with me, because the story is just beginning. What happens after he walks in might just surprise you. She hadn't heard the door open, just the shift in the air. Michael stood still, just inside the doorway, keys still in his hand. Irina looked up slowly, her fingers frozen on the red ribbon of the box she had been preparing for him. Her eyes met his, and for a second, the world seemed to hold its breath. There was no anger in his face, no warmth either, just that quiet expression that used to mean he was thinking deeply. Now, she couldn't read it at all. The gift was something small, insignificant maybe, but full of meaning. It was a framed photo from their early days in New York, when they used to get lost in the city just to spend more time together. She found it last week in an old folder, and without thinking, she decided to surprise him. Maybe it was her way of reaching out. A gentle signal that she still cared, still remembered what they had been. But now, it just felt out of place. She was kneeling on hardwood floors, eyes misted over, trying to stitch a moment of love back into their strained routine, and he, back from work too early, was witnessing a moment neither of them were prepared for. Michael stepped inside slowly, closing the door behind him. No words. Just the soft click of the lock, and the low creak of the floor beneath his feet. His presence was familiar, yet distant. Irina stood up quietly, brushing her hands on her robe, suddenly aware of the silence between them. It wasn't hostile, it was deeper than that. It was filled with too many words never spoken, too many nights they turned away from each other, pretending it would be better in the morning. They used to talk about everything. Now they barely asked how the other slept. Michael glanced at the gift box on the table but didn't ask. Irina noticed. He always noticed the little things, but these days, he didn't say them out loud. Maybe he didn't know how. Or maybe he was afraid of what might come next. Why was he home early? Had he felt it too, that invisible string pulling him back? Or was it just coincidence? The tension lingered like the scent of her perfume in the air, warm and inviting but uncertain. No one moved closer. No one said a word. And still, neither of them walked away. Michael finally placed his keys on the counter with a soft clink, the sound barely registering over the hum of the fridge and the echoing silence between them. Irina still hadn't said anything. Neither had he. It was like they were both waiting, each expecting the other to take the first step. But what do you say when so much has already been left unsaid? Words weren't enough anymore. They needed something deeper. Something real. She turned slightly, brushing her hair back behind her ear, a nervous habit she hadn't realized she still had. "You're home early," she said, her voice softer than she intended. Almost like she didn't want to disturb the fragile air holding them apart. He nodded, eyes drifting to the framed photo still half wrapped on the table. She didn't explain it, and he didn't ask. The silence filled in the blanks for them both. It wasn't just about the gift. Or the silence. Or the distance that had crept in over the past year. It was all of it, layered like dust on forgotten memories. There was a time when Michael would text her from work just to say he missed her. A time when she would wait by the window every evening, counting the minutes until his footsteps echoed in the hallway. But somewhere between responsibilities, time zones, and buried feelings, they stopped seeing each other, even when they were in the same room. He finally sat down on the edge of the couch, elbows on knees, rubbing his hands together slowly. She stayed standing. Watching him. Wanting to cross the room but unsure if she was still allowed to. "I ran into Daniel today," he said suddenly, his voice low but steady. Her heart paused. "Daniel? My old roommate from college. Haven't seen him in years." He asked how you were. If we were still happy. That word, happy. It felt like a stranger now. Irina didn't answer, just nodded. Michael looked up at her, searching for something. Maybe the woman he married. Maybe the answer to a question he hadn't asked yet. "I didn't know what to say," he added. "So I told him we were figuring things out." Irina let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "That's honest," she whispered. The clock ticked on the wall. The apartment was the same, but something about tonight made everything feel unfamiliar. Like they were guests in each other's lives. A second phone buzzed faintly on the counter. Irina glanced over, Michael's phone. A message from a name she didn't recognize. Just a first name. No emoji. No context. He didn't rush to check it. That made it worse. And yet, even now, she wanted to believe there was still something left worth saving. What do you think is really going on between Michael and Irina? Is this silence hiding guilt? Or just heartbreak? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think is holding back more? And what would you do in Irina's place? Wait it out, or ask the hard questions? Irina's eyes flicked to the phone again. It buzzed once more, lighting up the countertop like a warning light in the dark. Still, Michael didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the floor like it held the answers he couldn't speak. She didn't ask about the message. Not yet. The fear of knowing was heavier than the guessing. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, still not looking at her. "About us. About what changed." The way he said us sounded almost fragile, like the word might break if he held on to it too long. Irina took a step forward, arms crossed loosely over her chest, more for comfort than distance. Her heart thudded hard in her chest. She didn't want to hear another speech about how life got in the way. She wanted truth. Even if it hurt. "I know things haven't been right," she said, her voice steady now. "But I also know I'm still here. And so are you." He finally looked up, and their eyes locked. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, it felt like they were in the same room, really in it. Not just passing through each other's lives like ghosts. He opened his mouth, like he was about to say something important, but the phone buzzed again. This time, the silence that followed was deafening. Irina took a breath. "Michael, who is she?" His face didn't flinch. That was the worst part. Not shock. Not denial. Just quiet. The question hung in the air like smoke. "I didn't do anything," he finally said, his voice raw. "But I could've. I thought about it. More than once." Her heart felt like it stopped for a moment. Not from anger, but from the confirmation that they really were slipping. Not because of someone else. But because they forgot to choose each other, day after day, when it mattered most. She turned her back, staring out the window where the city lights blinked like tired eyes. Her reflection in the glass was distant, unfamiliar. Just like the way he used to hold her. Behind her, Michael stood up slowly. She could feel it, his footsteps quiet, careful, like he was walking on ice. They were both standing on it now. One more word, one more truth, and everything could crack. What do you think is going to happen next? Will they finally confront the truth, or will silence win again? Drop your predictions in the comments, and let's see who really knows where this love story is heading. The tension in the room was thick, like a storm waiting to break. Irina didn't move from the window. Her eyes followed the city skyline, but her thoughts were 1,000 miles away, tangled in the weight of everything unsaid. Behind her, Michael shifted, still watching her, still hesitating. It was the kind of silence that had history in it, filled with choices they made and the ones they didn't. "I never crossed the line," he said finally. "But I won't lie. I kept the door open." She closed her eyes. It was worse than she thought, not because he cheated, but because he wanted to. That meant something inside them had already broken. Still, she didn't speak. Not yet. She needed to breathe through it. To hold her emotions together like glass in her hands. Then the second twist came, subtle but powerful. Michael added, almost as an afterthought, "And she's not just anyone. You've met her." Irina turned slowly, her expression frozen in disbelief. "What?" He looked down. Regret heavy in his features. "Ireina. From the language workshop. The one who helped us with the immigration paperwork last year." It hit her like cold water. She remembered Ireina, bright, always smiling, warm in a way that drew people in without trying. She had sat at their kitchen table once, shared tea, even complimented Irina's earrings. And now, her name lived on Michael's phone, one buzz at a time. Irina stepped back, her balance swaying slightly. "You told her about us?" "Not everything," he said quickly. "But enough. We were talking late one night after work. One conversation turned into more." She listened. "I didn't mean for it to happen. But you let it," she said, her voice cracked but calm. "You made space for her in places that used to be mine." The pain wasn't loud, it was quiet, deep, the kind that changes a person slowly. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Instead, she stood there, heartbreak painted across her expression in colors only he could recognize. Michael stepped forward but stopped midway. There was still a line between them, and crossing it now meant more than just walking a few steps. Irina turned her gaze back to the window, the city now blurred by the sting in her eyes. "What would you do now?" Would you walk away, knowing trust has been bent if not broken? Or would you ask one more question before making the final choice? Tell me in the comments, has someone ever tested your love in silence like this? Hit speech balloon if you've ever stood at the edge of forgiveness, or the edge of goodbye. Michael stood still, waiting for her to say something, anything. The silence between them had never felt heavier. Irina's chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths, her face unreadable now. Her eyes, once full of questions, had gone quiet. Something in her had shifted. Not just hurt, but clarity. She walked toward the table slowly, picked up the framed photo, and looked at it, two people smiling under spring sunlight, unaware of the weight the future would bring. You should go, she said finally, her voice almost too calm. Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. Irina, I'm not angry, she interrupted gently. I just think, we both know we're not who we used to be. And maybe that's okay. But if we keep standing in this space, pretending love is still here the same way, we'll end up resenting it. He stepped closer. So that's it? She looked up, eyes shining but steady. That's the choice you already made. I'm just catching up. But just when it seemed final, when it felt like she was about to walk away, Michael did something unexpected. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I wrote this last week, he said. Before anything with Ireina. Before the silence took over. I didn't have the courage to give it to you. She hesitated. He held it out, hand trembling slightly. She took the letter but didn't open it. I wasn't looking for someone else, he said. I was just looking for the version of you I lost. But I forgot, you lost parts of me too. Irina stared at the envelope in her hands, her grip tightening. After a long pause, she slid the letter into the photo frame behind the picture, without reading it. I'll decide later, she whispered. Michael nodded, understanding she wasn't ready to forgive, but maybe she hadn't completely closed the door either. Just as he picked up his coat and turned to leave, Irina's phone buzzed on the table. One message. From a name Michael didn't recognize. He turned slightly, eyes meeting hers. Should I ask who that is? She smiled faintly, but said nothing. And just like that, the story flipped. What do you think was in that message? Who is really holding the last card in this love story? Drop your theories in the comments, this ending might not be what it seems. Michael didn't ask again. He just stood there, watching her as the message notification faded from the screen. There was a quiet acceptance in his eyes, something softer than defeat but still distant. Without another word, he opened the door and stepped out. The latch clicked gently behind him, no slamming, no shouting, just the sound of something unfinished, yet necessary. Irina remained still for a moment, holding the frame close to her chest. Her fingers traced the edge of the envelope behind the glass, but she didn't remove it. Not yet. Maybe she would read it when the apartment didn't feel so heavy. Maybe she wouldn't read it at all. She wasn't sure. She sat on the edge of the couch where he had been moments earlier, her thoughts spinning quietly. There were no tears now. Only silence, and clarity. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was waiting for something to change. She was making peace with the truth. The message on her phone was still there. She picked it up slowly, saw the name again, and smiled. Not the kind of smile that hides something, but the kind that remembers hope. The name wasn't a stranger. It was someone from her past. A friend she hadn't seen in years who had recently moved to the city. He had reached out weeks ago, just to say he'd seen her art on display in a small gallery downtown. He remembered how she used to dream of being a painter. She never told Michael about it. Not because it was a secret, but because somewhere along the way, she stopped talking about her dreams. About herself. Now, she typed back a short reply, "Let's catch up soon." It wasn't a new love story. Not yet. But it was a beginning. As the night wore on, the apartment felt different. Not empty, but open. Free of expectations, and filled with the kind of stillness that didn't hurt. Irina looked at the framed photo once more, set it gently on the shelf, and turned off the lights. Some love stories end quietly. And sometimes, the softest endings are the ones we carry the longest. How did this ending make you feel? Would you have forgiven, walked away, or waited for something more? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion might just inspire the next story. And if you want to see a sequel, let me know. This story might not be over yet.